Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a Friday. I hope you all have a great weekend. And today we're going to be discussing quite possibly my very favorite record by Superjoint Ritual, A Lethal Dose of American Hatred. I'll jump right into my assessment of this particular record. When I listen to it musically, I hear a lot of Black Sabbath influences coming from the guitars, the bass, and the drums, obviously. I think the drums are a little bit more stripped down than what Bill Ward did, but needless to say, this drummer does an excellent job. As a matter of fact, I would go as far as to say phenomenal. Absolutely perfect for the music. Couldn't fit any better. For any of you that have already heard it, you'll notice that Phil Anselmo uses primarily a lot of black metal type screaming, which he does, I think, better than a lot of the vocalists out there whom are primarily in black metal bands, and that's all they've done. He actually adds a lot of spoken word into the mix, which gives it a really good effect. During this particular phase in his life, I know for a fact that this was towards the end of his heroin addiction. If you ever seen the famous interview he did with Loyola University in New Orleans, Louisiana, you'll see what I mean. It was about 2003 when he pretty much sunk to his all-time lowest as a human being. And it comes across in the lyrics. They're very poetic. They're very well thought out, at least from what I can read. And it deals a lot with despair, depression, angst, anger, hatred, as the name of the album suggests. Songs that stand out right away are Dressed Like a Target, and I think my personal favorite, if I had to pick one, would be one of two, and that's Personal Insult and The Destruction of a Person. Personal Insult is obviously completely anti-militant Middle East and terrorism from that area of the world, which I wholeheartedly agree with. It's very harsh, it's very brutal, very to the point. Can't really ask for more. Personal Insult, not Personal Insult, but A Destruction of a Person, he's vividly describing his addictions and how he feels tremendous remorse for essentially getting people he knew into heroin or other drugs. And I'd be lying if I wasn't guilty of a very similar path. And this leads to a lot of darkness, a lot of despair, because if you watch any of Superjoint's Rituals live shows on YouTube, which I recommend you do, they're very good. A lot of times Phil will say "Hail Satan." His gesticulations are very much Hitler-esque. If you've ever watched any of Hitler's speeches, regardless of whether or not you understand German, a lot of his movements with his hands and throwing them up, so forth, he does it a little less subtle than what I do, but he throws it in there constantly. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing per se, I'm just saying it's a matter of fact. And I would go as far to say as Phil was probably at the lowest point in his life at that time, and it reflects in the music. I mean, to this day, I don't think Phil even considers performing any of those songs any longer. And I can understand why, regardless of the fact that they're very good. Definitely a dark time, but from a dark time spawned an absolute classic, essential record in the catalog of Phil Anselmo and Superjoint Ritual. I think it's also interesting that Hank 3 was the bass player in many of their shows during 2003. I would probably go as far as to say that when it comes to their live performance. Highly recommended record. I suggest anybody that doesn't have it, go out, buy it, download it, get an MP3 of it, stream it. It is definitely worth your time, definitely worth the money. It's a combination of classic early Ozzy Osbourne era Black Sabbath mixed with black metal and hints of Reinventing the Steel by Pantera in the year 2000. And from 1996 through 2001, Phil definitely went in the way of extreme metal as far as his vocals were concerned, taking not only elements of black and death, but also thrash on top of the style that he already created up until that point. Keep in mind, when he got into Pantera, he was essentially like a Rob Halford power metal type singer, which of course that was the first record, or they call it an EP, he did with Pantera power metal. I don't know why they call it an EP when it was actually a full length. But anyway, yes, if you do not know, which I'm sure a lot of you do, that was the first official Pantera record with Phil Anselmo. There was 3 records before that: Metal Magic, Project in the Jungle, and I believe it was Metal Magic. I'm drawing a little bit of a blank right now, but you all know your history of Pantera, and yeah, absolutely essential record. Anybody who likes groove-laden heavy metal rock, or anybody who likes traditional hardcore such as Cro-Mags, Slapshot, Madball, it's all in there. If you like bands like Sick of It All, you'll like this record. I truly believe everything is solid, tight, wrapped in very nicely into a giant original sounding ball of wax. With that, I'm going to close this video and say definite 5-star, if not 10-star record. Just that good. Once again, a lethal dose of American hatred, and everybody have a great weekend. I'll be seeing you very soon.